My name is Chance Hall. This is Read the World, Chapter 1. And today we'll be talking about perspectives, power structures, and paradise lost. Now, the reason I wanted to start off with talking about perspective for this series is because when we talk about literature and world events, we also have to talk about the lens in which people are going to see them through. For example, I, as an African-American high school senior, would see a world event differently than someone who lives in East Asia or someone who lives in high-class Europe. It's also important to figure out from what perspective the literature is written, and if there's a review of that, what perspective the review is written in, as the reviewer, the writer, and the reader would all have different implicit biases and different ways of looking at things. So we can see this easily with more biblical stories if we want to go down that route. If we go through my own biblical knowledge of how Satan came to be, God threw Lucifer, one of his angels, into hell for questioning him and becoming too vain. Lucifer tried to raise an army against God, lost, and then was forced to suffer for all of eternity and watch over all the other sinners suffering for all of eternity. In Paradise Lost, however, written by John Milton in 1667, Lucifer is written out as someone who was asking questions and God being a tyrant and striking him down and replacing him with other angels and even the Son of God. And just a few days ago, earlier in February, Deshaun Harrison wrote a think piece that moves to place Lucifer as a black child and God as a father that abandoned him, noting that in Milton's time and environment, he would have never thought of that to begin with. When we compare the two, both lean into the unbalanced power dynamic of God and Lucifer, noting that God ultimately had the final say of the authoritative version of the story that ends up in the Bible. However, Harrison's version of events places this power dynamic along with a family backing. He leans into the fact that God abandoned Lucifer when Lucifer started asking questions and making suggestions, seeming that he was challenged, and then even went so far as to get replacements that everyone knew that Lucifer would see. In the end, Harrison justifies Lucifer's rage as a rage to be noticed and loved again and not be abandoned. And it's not a rage against society and humans and a want to tear everything down. If we want more modern and mundane examples of perspectives in media and literature, we can talk about
jobs, y'all. Thousands of good-paying jobs waiting to be filled. Satisfying jobs that can turn into lifelong careers.
we can talk about
Jobs in industries, biotech, construction,
shifting perspectives when it comes to politics, which is a big metaphor and plot point in LA by Night, which focuses on vampire politics and shifting alliances. 35mm has songs that are written about perceived stories behind photos, which the photos are very vague, and the stories and the songs are also somewhat vague, but give more details. And Hunger Games has a very good plot that centers around revolutions, class systems, and is the alternative better than what we have now. In the end, perspectives of the writer will almost always bleed into their work. This can be seen with Harry Potter today and J.K. Rowling trying to retcon in a bunch of diversity. As originally the story, the way she had it was good because she wrote it in her own perspective as a low-class single mother white woman, and now that she's trying to retcon in Word of God all this extra diversity, it just feels like it's falling flat. The perspective of the reader will always give slightly different interpretations than the writer may have expected from that work. Another good example of this in Harry Potter is how a lot of people are starting to see Harry as not white but more British Indian or Pakistani. And political and societal movements may be the reason that a specific work was written or how a specific work is suddenly viewed. This could blend into how a lot of movies suddenly become cult classics, especially Jennifer's Body now being a cult classic, which Jennifer's Body is about a woman who is tried to be sacrificed for a cult and ends up slaughtering the whole cult. And that is why perspectives, power structures, and Paradise Lost all combine together to give us this great tale that we have to talk about.